everyone, welcome back to my channel. Okay, some of you told me that you thought you were subscribed and then realized that you weren't and were a little confused, and you seem to have figured it out. But if there's anyone who is still confused, I have a new channel. This is the new channel. If my intro says 2.0 after my little logo comes up, then you know you're at the new channel. And if you don't know, just check to see if you're subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed, because you might, think that it's the channel you're already subscribed to, but it's actually my new channel. And if you're not sure why I switched channels, you can find that on the old channel at one of my latest videos, probably the last video on there. But anyway, some of you who came from the old channel might actually recognize today's video by the thumbnail. I'm going to share with you a Gunne Sax dress that I made using bed sheets because, I'm bedsheet queen, Oh, I had a friend who told me my nickname was the gown queen, and I was like, yes. This was before I started sewing, because I just always wanted to photograph dresses and find beautiful gowns, but I would love to continue being known as the gown queen. Anyway, without further ado, let's get to today's video, going back in time again to last year, where I made this dress in the autumn time. So it has a very autumn feel to it, even though we're here in summer. It's fine. Who sets the rules? Who is ready for fall? If that's you, you might want to make this dress. Anyway, let's get to the video and how I made this Gunne Sax dress dupe using a bed sheet. Hope you guys enjoy it, and yeah, that's all I have to say. Let's go. First things first, I found my fabric, which is a bedsheet from Goodwill. As you can see, it's a king size. I then measured the height of the skirt that I wanted, and I was going to do 2 tiers, so I wanted to make sure that the first tier would be the correct length. I'm actually really excited. I'm this is the in the zone outfit. Most of what I need will be for the skirt. All right, let's measure 60 inches. So I wanted to see, one way to do it is to wrap around her. After I figured out the width that I wanted my waist, and I wanted to 2 times gather, so after I figured that out, I laid out my bed sheet just to see how much fabric I'm working with. I decided that I really do like the length of this little Gunne Sax dupe that I already did. I'm going to do the same length skirt because up against me is literally the perfect height. I'm just going to copy this length. First tier is going to be 29 plus seam, and then this tier has enough for a ruffle. Let's find a seam. 13 plus rolled hem. Right. Fold her and put her away. So for the skirt, I had to split up the bottom tier into 2 pieces and then attach them together later. So when I went to go cut it, I basically made the top tier a 60 by 30 inches high, I believe, and that would be to do a 2 times gathered waist. And then, as you can see, I cut 2 skinnier rectangles, and those would be attached together to form the bottom ruffle. And this is because the bed sheet wasn't long enough on the measurements, so I couldn't just do it in one single long rectangle. This sleeve pattern is from the Simplicity 6940. It's like a vintage, they're wedding dresses, maybe just dresses. Anyway, so it's something good to start with. This is the length. It's supposed to have a cuff, so when you see it like that, you might put it a little bit wider. And then I'm going to do a cuff, and basically for the cuff I'm just going to cut out a long rectangle, and it's going to fold in half and then have seam allowance. So the length that I want of the cuff, I'll probably do about that length. I'll just measure. Another good thing to do is to measure how far down from that shoulder seam before it hits where I want the cuff to be, and then a little bit of extra because I want it to poof up a little bit. I don't want it just to be straight down. That measurement we get 22.5 or 22 before we get to where the cuff needs to be. So we're gonna see if that is the length of this or if we need this to be lengthened as well. Oh, perfect. This one goes down to about 23.5. So the sleeve ended up not being as long as I would have wanted it, so I definitely would have lengthened it, but at the time I thought it was going to be fine. It is what it is. I also thought I would do it poofier, but it ended up being the perfect amount of poof for what I was going for. Also, as you can see here, I'm cutting a cuff out. If you're interested in seeing how I came about this pattern, I actually did talk about it on my old channel, so I'll link that in the card in the corner, or you can find the link down below to find that old video. It won't be on this channel, but you can definitely go back to that channel and find it there. This is random, but I got some thread for my project, a zipper for my project, and potential buttons. All my pieces are cut. Let's continue to this Gunne Sax dress. So after all your pieces are cut, just start lining them up and sewing all the seams together. Right here I'm doing the bust seam. Although this is not like a formal tutorial of any kind and I'm not selling any sort of pattern with it, I will try my best to explain what I'm doing, and I tried to record pretty much every step. So if anything is confusing or you're not sure what I did, feel free to let me know in a comment and I'll try my best to explain if it's not explained in this video. Basically, I just put the center front with the side front together, and then before adding the waist part, I knew I wanted to iron it flat, and that way it would be a lot easier to line up the bottom piece once I add it. Also, because it's super satisfying to iron. I don't know what it is, but it's just super satisfying. There's the waist part. So after I ironed it all, I attached it all together. I did not put the center back / side back, which is all one piece, would be added after I put this little waistband in. Now that the waistband part is in, I am going to iron that, and then I will be able to attach my side back. No, back. I guess it's a side back and a center back. I'll just say back piece. After I iron this nice and flat, I'll then be able to attach the back pieces. Also, I clipped the seams so that they didn't bunch up. Here's the back piece, and now we're going to attach it to the sides as well as the shoulder seams. So basically I wasn't thinking about the tie straps, so I would have attached them here had I remembered, but since I didn't, I will also show you later on in the video how I ended up fixing that problem. Also, before putting in the side seams, I probably would have put on the decorative trim that I ended up putting on later in the ribbon. So yeah, I basically jumped to the
not the side seams, but the back portion of the dress. I would have attached it later, but yeah, I ended up attaching it right away because I was all over the place just trying to figure out which order to go in without any instructions, just making it up as I go. So I tested it out, put it on the dress form, and try to get a sense of like, is it worth it to make another piece like this? Do I need to fix something? I forgot the straps. You know, the ties? Oh my gosh, I forgot to cut them out and then insert them. No big deal. Literally all I have to do is seam rip just enough to put them in. It's totally fine. The way that I'm gonna make these ties is to basically use this, but I'm going to fold one of the little sides so it doesn't have a seam, and that way I can cut it on the fold, and then I'm just gonna make sure it's long enough. But that's the width that I'm gonna go with. The width of this plus seam allowance. It's fine. Look, mistakes happen, so let's get to cutting. I measured the tie strap that I had on the last Gunne Sax dupe I did because I thought it was the perfect length. I ended up just cutting the width of the waistband part of the pattern. So I turned them inside out so that I could put right sides together, and then I got all my thread and bobbin and whatnot ready and sewed the tie straps. And of course, I ran out of bobbin thread. What's new? So the first time I did it, I flipped it like this. This took so long, and I'll show you how I end up just using my loop turner. But it is technically a way to do it if you don't have a loop turner and if it's thick enough. It's kind of funny though watching it in time lapse when I like flick it. It reminds me of like a little cat scratching his head or something. Or no, a hamster. Oh my gosh. Leave a comment if you've ever had a dwarf hamster. Me and my sister like literally were so obsessed with them when we were kids, but there was so many times that they would escape their cage, and one time they like were hiding somewhere and we found them under the stove. And we had to like bribe them out with food. My mom would get so mad at us if we like didn't catch the hamsters. Anyway, here I used a loop turner and it went way faster. And I don't know why I was talking about hamsters. Once you turn them inside out, be sure to iron them nice and flat and just as much as you can, because it's really hard to fold it correctly, but I just kind of wiggle my fingers till I get as much as I can, just as much as I can so I can iron it properly. I also attached pins, as you can see, to hold it down, or you could put something heavy or clip it, and that made it a lot easier for me to pull on it as I ironed it across while pushing out the seams so that it's nice and flat and full and everything. Super satisfying to watch, but took forever. Also, this is me seam ripping. This is how I solved my problem. I just had to seam rip it open and insert the tie, which later I ended up seam ripping this again because I didn't put the decorative trim before attaching that back piece. So this is me learning as I go what order I should have gone in and messing up along the way because I was just like going ham, determined. So I attached that tie and then I sandwiched it inside the bodice pieces. Sometimes when I have to fix things, they're not that hard. Some issues are not the worst. Like this one was a really easy one to fix. Now I'm sewing the sleeves together, sewing that inside seam right there. I attached it to the bodice and then I basically just gathered it by hand and pinning it. I did it in like tiny little increments of just like pleating it, tiny little pleats. I was kind of lazy, like I didn't want to do a gathering stitch or anything, I just kind of wanted to like make it happen. You might find that a lot of my methods are out of pure laziness because I like to just get things done really fast. You could see all the pins because I was just pleating it, starting from the top center of the sleeve, and then I pleated it towards the center on one side and then towards the center on the other side. Not sure if that makes sense, but I basically only had it pleated on the top part of the arm, and then the rest was just flat on the arm seam or whatever. Don't ask. So here I am sewing it up, and there you can see the poof. I was digging the poof. There's the other poof.
Okay guys, so we came across a dilemma, but that's okay. We're going to sort through this dilemma. I cannot find ribbon in this color, in a thinner ribbon, basically the same kind I used for the last Gunne Sax dupe that I did. So I'm going to have to go on another hunt. However, I did want to make this a partial behind the scenes, partial I'm showing you what I'm doing. So it's not like an official tutorial, but it's kind of a tutorial. Not really. It's more like a guidance. It's not perfect. And we are still figuring out things together. Like, what am I going to do about the ribbon part? I'm close. The bodice is ready for the ribbon. How is this happening? If I can't find it, I will compromise and I'll figure something out. I ordered ribbon from the store. They substituted it for, I'll show you. Apparently I have a lot of thicker kind though, because I've got 2 of them. Maybe that's why I thought I had it, I don't know. They substituted it for this. This is not the right kind. This is off fray and it's white, and I don't want white because I feel like the cream color with this dark red, okay, it's a bit of a crooked angle, but that color, if you put white with it, to me it looks Christmassy. I'm not vibing with the Christmas look. I'm just wasting time talking about it, so let's just figure it out and I'll let you know on the other side what happened.
So I actually ended up finding that ribbon. It was in my little sewing box, which was like underneath my desk, but it didn't have enough. But you'll see later where I ended up using some of it for just a small portion of it. Anyway, here I am making the lining, and I actually had to attach the little waist seam on each of the pieces that were like split up because I didn't need the lining to have that waistband or anything on it. It just needed to be flat. And I also did the center front on the fold, and that made it a little less to stitch together for the lining. And of course you gotta iron them so that they're not super wrinkly like this was. But look how satisfying that is. Alright, so as you can see, that center front was on a fold, and now I'm just attaching the side front. I think that this pattern from the bodice block I got ended up being a pretty good fit. I did tweak it a bit so that it was like properly fitted to me. I'll also link the bodice block that I used to get the seams for this one. Right here, I am marking the lines that I wanted the ribbons to go on. I wanted them to go straight down. Since I actually did find that thinner ribbon, I measured it out and it was going to be like literally exactly what I needed. I also made sure that I had the seam allowance to factor in because I was working with barely any ribbon. For one of the trims that I wanted towards the middle, it wasn't the right color, so I soaked it in hot coffee. This is me testing out some ideas. None of these ideas ended up working, but I managed later on, as you'll see. So here are the skirt rectangles, and I wanted to make notches like each, 1/4. Yeah, I just wanted to make 4 notches throughout it. I also needed to sew together the skinnier tier, the bottom, to make that longer 120-inch rectangle. So here I am sewing it together. I was gonna do French seams, but somehow I screwed that up, and I'm not even surprised. After I got that going, I changed my stitch length to be really low tension and really wide stitches. And then I went ahead and put a basting stitch. I decided to do 2 basting stitches because that is like the best way, to be honest, to get a more, spot on, like you just sew in between the lines after you gather it. And it reduces the risk of some of the pleats or whatever just folding in or messing up. So I do prefer it this way, it's just a little extra work. I lined up all the notches that I created on the skinny tier and then the top tier. Like I said, I made notches, 4 notches throughout the whole thing. So I lined each one up, and then after I line them up, I will pull on the gathering stitches. As you can see, I'm pulling it. This is like super satisfying, to be honest. Also, don't ask why I'm wearing a Raiders t-shirt. I tried to hide it in half the video so I didn't have some logo, but it is what it is. Anyway, so I stitched the gathered bottom tier to the top tier of the skirt, and I sewed it on there. These clips actually came in handy to make sure that, it all stayed in place. I sewed right between my gathering stitches. After that, you'll see the basting stitches. You can pull those out. I usually make them in like a bright color, just a different color. Generally, I pick a color that, isn't going to be a waste for me because it's probably something I thrifted and it's a color that I probably will never use.
They're all in here in their best lives. I'm just gonna cut that excess off. We're almost there, guys. It is 2:30 a.m. But I finally am putting the skirt together, and then I'm going to put the skirt, I'm going to attach it to the bodice because I can't technically do the trim until I attach it to the bodice. Or sorry, till I attach the bodice to the skirt because I need trim to go over the skirt seam. We're just going to go ahead and do this skirt. What's going on here? Lime green. Right. Almost there. Okay. Why is this funny to me? This is my skirt. It looks like a cute skirt. Almost there.
Okay, so now that we have the bodice, I needed to attach it to the skirt. So I made some notches and lined it all up. But I needed to do this because one of the trims that I was going to use would have been over the waist seam. So I wanted to make sure I got that skirt on first. I attached the notches that I also made for the bodice and the skirt to match up so that it's evenly distributed. After I pinned it all together, I then grabbed that thread and pulled at it so that I could gather it to the right length. I didn't do the double basting stitch or anything, I just did one, and so it was a little bit more work for me to have to like make sure none of the pleats fold over or anything. But anyway, so I changed my thread color and moved on to the ribbon. This is the only amount of ribbon I had in this size, and the store still didn't have it, so I barely made it work. I wanted this, I think it's 3/8 inch ribbon in a cream satin. So I lined it up with those markings that I made and sewed down the very edge of both sides of the ribbon. Because I didn't make this one with the ties or anything like a lot of Gunne Sax have, I used this trim because it kind of mimicked the idea of that, and I feel like it worked out well just for the fact that I didn't have any other options.
Please ignore the stain on my shirt. It's the next day. I just wanted to kind of do a little check-in here. So I gotta serge the insides here, but this is going to cover the raw inside. Once I get the lining in, then I will serge the edge of the lining to this seam, which is the skirt and bodice connection. The lining will help make that neckline be nice and perfect and clean. Also, I will serge the armholes on the inside. Also, I'm going to put the cuffs on the sleeves. Let's get to it. We are so close. Once I'm done, I will then hem it, make sure it's the right length, cut it shorter if I need to. We're so close. We're so close.
Now it is time to attach the lining bodice to the main bodice. Now that I have all the trims in and the ribbons, I want to be able to close it off and give it that clean look. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, for supporting my channel. I am trying my very best to grow. It has been such a dream to be on YouTube and finally make it happen. Dressmaking has also just been very therapeutic for me. I feel like I can truly use my talents in this because I've always been really good at math, and I'm also a perfectionist, which is kind of a struggle sometimes, but thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. Then I understitched it, that way the lining would line up perfectly once I folded it over and ironed it afterwards. Here I am lining up those edges of the neckline that I just sewed together and making sure it's ironed so that it lines up and is flattened out. This fabric is pretty thin, but it ended up being totally fine. Also, this is the solution I came up with for the waistband. I attached a thicker ribbon. Unfortunately, I didn't have any more thin ribbon and I couldn't find any, but I attached the thick one nonetheless, and I decided to just go with it.
Okay, a huge reason why I don't like technically do tutorials right now is because I'm still just discovering new ideas, designs, and I'm having fun with it. And whenever it's the first time that I do a design or a particular style, I usually just do it in random orders and like figure it out, but sometimes I make mistakes. And now is one of those moments that I made a mistake. And since I turned this video into a somewhat tutorial, kind of more like a this is how I did it, it may not be the best way. I will try to tell you if I made a mistake. So I made one. On this ribbon that I sewed across, you know, I didn't have a thinner one. I ran out of thin one, so I had to use a thick one. But when I got to this part right here, where the tie is on the side seam, I had already put all this together because I kind of just like wanted to just do as much as I can when I didn't have ribbon. But generally I would have not attached the side pieces until I got all of these little decorations done. It's fine though, because I undid the seam. You can see this little band wanting to come out, and now I'm going to shove this ribbon in the open seam. There we go. Now it's in there. We also need to put the band back in there, and then we're going to go to the back side where it's all connected. We're going to, sew it back. So that's the side seam with the ribbon and the back tie. I just inserted that ribbon in there so it can have a clean finish. And I did on the other side, see, I left the ribbon flat. And what I'm going to do is open up that seam like I did on the other side, shove it in there and re-sew it. Since the lining is not sewn to the inside or anything like that, I left it open. That allows me, I have the time to, you know, fix those things. So yeah, let's sew it. Say cuff?
Whoa, it's good.
It's good? Oh, thank you.
It's great. It's fine.
Alright, go ahead.
In this next part, I am now sewing the cuffs to the sleeve. I gathered the sleeve and made the cuffs finished off and everything. So this is where I put the gathering stitch, and I made notches for this as well, and then lined those notches up with the cuff. That was just a folded rectangle basically, and then I I did rolled hems on the edge of it, and then I attached, as you can see, the notches that I made. I attached those in the appropriate spots. So again, I split it into 4 and put notches to make sure that it was evenly distributed with the sleeve. I then sewed it together and flipped it inside out. Also, with the raw edges that I had, I ended up doing a rolled hem, and that's the part where I open it up from the actual sleeve so that there is space for my hand to go in. Technically, I was going to do a button, but I ended up getting lazy and didn't do a button, so we're going to ignore that when the final reveal happens. Just don't look at the sleeves. Don't look at the cuffs. Just pretend that they have a button and they're closed and that I wasn't lazy.
So I decided I wanted to put this knit stay tape. I know it says knit, but it's all I have and it works pretty well for what I'm trying to do. Just kind of strengthen the neckline. I'm going to go from the back all the way down.
Okay, so I finally got to a point where I was able to serge a lot of these nasty raw edges that fray so easily. This is one of my favorite parts. I love serging. It's like that perfectionist in me that sees it go from crazy fraying to like in control and looking clean. So I did all of the raw edges that the gathered parts were, like the sleeves, the cuffs, and the waist seam. Here I am about to serge the inside of the sleeves. This is after the lining was attached. For the center back where the zipper would be, I serged that edge, but I ended up only doing it on one side because I realized I didn't want to do it again because I was lazy. So that's what I'm doing here, but I only did it to one side. So you can see the difference it makes, and you can just learn from this if you want. If you'd rather serge it or keep it raw and hide it under the zipper. I was lazy. Also, if you are wondering at this point, why am I serging it with white thread? 1, too lazy to switch colors. 2, I only have white and black, so it's not like I had red anyway. So here I'm showing you how I basically base stitched the back seam where the zipper would go. so that it's all lined up straight, and then I'm going to sew the zipper on properly onto that, sewed part, and then later I will seam rip it open. So I use my zipper foot, attach that on, and that way I was able to get this brand new zipper. There are video tutorials on YouTube you can find of how to insert a zipper this way, so I would highly recommend looking up some methods and see what works for you. Here I am sewing on each side of the zipper as far down as it goes. I did use a 22 to 24 inch zipper, I believe is the length. The longest zipper I could get, basically, since it is a really high back. I then seam ripped it open so that I can access the zipper so that I could do the top, but I kept the top part connected so it stayed lined up. And then after I got the zipper attached, I ended up seam ripping the rest of it open so we could see how it turned out. It wasn't like the perfect straightest thing ever, but it worked out pretty good. I then used this lace trim so I can put it around the seam at the bottom tier of the skirt. I thought that would look really pretty. Oh, also, make sure you drink your water. So I basically just top stitched this right along the seam of the gathered part on the bottom of the skirt. I made sure to use a matching thread and just stitched all the way across.
I'm going to put the same kind of lace along the neckline. So I'm going to start at the back. I just cut the lace like that, and then we'll just line it up like this. And then I'll do it right there at the edge all the way across, and we'll just top stitch it. We're getting close. So since I have enough of this lace that I've been using, I was debating putting it on the sleeves, and then I was just like, you know what, that's pretty cute.
So I needed to hem it about 1.5 to 2 inches shorter than what it was, so I went ahead and ironed it at the length that I wanted to cut it at, and then I just left a little bit of that extra allowance so that I could do this rolled hem. I use the rolled hem foot. It is just super easy for me, so I usually prefer to use that. And then I basically did the rolled hem all the way along the bottom of the dress. This is like the best part, knowing that I'm like literally so close to being done. And here is the final look. I will put it on after I get these shots here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's a few things I would change, it would probably be the cuffs, the sleeve length, and the skirt. I think I would have preferred a circle skirt. This was just a rectangle to make it easy, but honestly, I would have preferred the circle skirt. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped in any sort of way.